All right, the 8th installment of comparing the NFC North positional groupings. This one's, you can call it the run stuffers. Really, your good 3-techs, your good interior defenders will also create pressure and be able to make the entire swarm effect from the defensive line. But really, job is to protect the middle, make sure nobody gets through, and then create the pressure. So our interior defensive tackles is what we really should say. Again, stemming from our position-by-position ranking overview, trying to be unbiased, best of the best NFC North, comparing this division, see how we stack up against each other. And if you remember last time, on the main video, I had the Lions ranked number 1, Packers 2, Bears 3, and Vikings 4. Let's see how fair I was. We've got 3 more of these to go, and we're getting real close to rookies reporting to minicamp. So we're right on time with what we're trying to do, and then I'm going to do one big video at the end comparing how the entire thing overview went. I appreciate you guys who faithfully tune in, faithfully check this out, because there is some good stuff in here, but I realize it's the boring off-season stuff that's not as exciting and glamorous, not highlight videos, not all the fun, sexy stuff. We'll get to that stuff. I got some of that stuff coming. I also have a fun game show that's coming up soon. Stay tuned. Just keep tuning in. I appreciate you guys. If you don't mind hitting the like button. Also, if you haven't subscribed, please do so. I appreciate all of you. I sincerely do. So let's get into this. Let's see how they stack up against each other. So for this one, we're going to use very similar metrics to our defensive ends, but we're going to weight it a little bit differently. We're going to give more value to their tackling ability, because you don't want guys to get through those gaps in the middle, and then a little bit more to getting pressure on the inside and those win rates of winning against the defender, because being able to get pressure onto the quarterback is able to disrupt the entire defensive or offensive scheme of the opposition, be able to get in there. That's what we want our interior defenders to do. So we've got our win percentage, the percentage of wins versus blocking on non-penalty pass rush snaps. Our PRP, that's kind of like the sack hit hurry from the other video. If you guys notice that when they put, this is PFF's metric, they give a little bit more weight to sacks than I do. So that's different than my sack hit hurry, because I give more weight to overall pressures. I think it's better to have overall pressures, period. That's their job. But we're going to use PRP because, honestly, it's just easier to look their stuff up than do calculations for every single one of my guys. And then run defense, PFF's grades for run defense, and tackling, PFF's grade for tackling. Well, as always, we're going to start with how the teams looked last year. And the Bears, we kept Andrew Billings and Gervon Dexter, so we've got some nice staple there. But we are losing Justin Jones, who was having a little bit of a down year. So I can see why we moved on, getting a little bit older, but he's been a staple for the Bears for a while. We appreciate everything Justin Jones did. Great player for a long time, just kind of like Eddie Jackson, just kind of different direction, turning the page. The problem is with the Bears, Zach Pickens will now slide into that role, and then who slides into the Zach Pickens role? Who slides into that 4th defensive tackle? I kind of really hoped that we would have gone after a DJ Reader type of guy, a Christian Wilkins type of guy. Well, we know the Lions ended up getting DJ Reader, and Christian Wilkins went to the Raiders. So we didn't really improve that position too much. We lost Justin Jones. Will Keith Randolph fall into that role? Will Jamry Chroma fall into that role? Will DeMarcus Walker slide over and play more 5-tech, 3-tech? And be able to slide Zach Pickens more into nose tackle? Who knows yet? We'll see as we get into camp. But here's last year's team. Obviously, Aleem McNeil, very solid player for the Lions. Overall, great player in every regard. But Andrew Billings and Gervon Dexter didn't have bad years. I'll leave these up here. I'm not going to go through every stat-by-stat spot. But you can see they had some strengths in the winning percentage. But then when it came to run defense, they were down a little bit. As compared to like one of the most elite in the league, and Aleem McNeil, you see his run defense grade was 79.3. And there's the difference. Kenny Clark, 61.2, also very solid. Kenny Clark, Aleem McNeil, some of the best in the league. So Andrew Billings, Gervon Dexter, Andrew Billings really had a solid year for him, probably a career year for him. And Gervon Dexter came on at the end, played very, very well. A lot of people only look at the sacks, and really when Montez Sweat came over, his sack numbers went up, but his pressure numbers went up, and also his win percentage went up. He had decent win percentage the whole year, but it went up when Montez Sweat came over, and you see it. It turned out into a decent year for Gervon Dexter. Well, how does it rank with all of these teams? Last year, the Bears ended up being the 2nd best overall, even though Aleem McNeil was the best defensive lineman, interior lineman in the division. the rest of the team struggled a little bit. And that's one of the things I talked about in the offseason is that was the only real clear weakness. So a lot of people wonder why I'm not hyping the Lions, but I'm high on the Lions this year. I really see their improvements. I mean, every weakness the Lions had, they went and addressed. Their guard, their defensive tackle, defensive secondary. They traded above the Packers to get Terry and Arnold to come up and be able to get solid, high prospect defensive back. I mean, the only thing that I see is they didn't really go out and get a solid wide receiver 3. And so, I mean, when that's your clear weakness and you've got Amon-Ra St. Brown as your wide receiver 1 and you've got Sam Laporta as your tight end who's really, I mean, multi-role, multifaceted, seriously one of the best, I'm worried about the Lions this year. Anyways, that's not the focus of this video, but really, the Bears did solid with a lot of criticism from the outside. They actually did very solid. You can see the Packers had a really solid year. Well, this is last year. We're more focused on this year, and I had the Bears ranked 3rd. Well, why did the Bears go down to 3? Big reason right there up top. Like I said, the Lions went and picked up DJ Reader, who's really, really solid. He and Aleem McNeil make that defensive line now with Aiden Hutchinson, Marcus Davenport. The other additions, they're stacked from top to bottom. This Lions defense is going to be, they've built a Super Bowl caliber team. I know we're annoyed by the Don Burrs out there. I get it. We're just going to have to endure hearing it from him, and I hope the Bears can take 1 out of 2 from the Lions. Now, we owned the Lions for 7 out of 8 quarters last year. I get that we really played well against them last year. Every year is different. And the same reason I'm saying, yeah, the Packers owned us last year, but I really blame Luke Getsy more than any other games for the Packers games. His play calling, even for him being a bad play caller, was even worse versus the Packers. It seemed like we didn't, and Matt Eberflus didn't do any favors on defense either. But I really see a sweep in the Packers and taking 1 out of 2 from the Lions if we can take 1 out of 2. That Thanksgiving game, I think, is going to be one of the choppiest, chippiest, most brutal games of the season. It's going to be a highlight game for me. I'm going to be very excited to see that morning, the early slated Thanksgiving game. Lions always come big for that. It's going to be fun to see. So they had a DJ Reader. Levi Onwuzurike, however you say his name, has moved up their depth chart. Kenny Clark, nothing changed for the Packers. And then Jerry Tillery and Jacqueline Roy for the Vikings. You can see some of the changes, how much that affects them. Kenny Clark and Devontae Wyatt as a really strong staple. So I had the Lions 1, Packers 2, Bears 3, Vikings 4. Well, how did it end up? Well, it actually ended up being exactly that. The Lions went from the 3rd team behind the Packers and us to, with that DJ Reader addition, that is a huge addition. A lot of fans don't understand don't recognize the changes that happen from season to season. That's a big one. That is a huge one. So with elusive running backs like DeAndre Swift, you can say Khalil Herbert a little bit, but really DeAndre Swift, that's the one thing that helps because look at the tackling grades on the far right, DJ Reader and Aleem McNeil. If we can get an elusive, slippery running back like DeAndre Swift, that can help us in those games, and which is ironic coming from the Lions because obviously he started there. The Lions, then maybe we can get some of those slips, but really it's going to come down to Coleman Shelton, Ryan Bates, Tevin Jenkins, even Nate Davis. If I didn't say Nate Davis before, those guys in the middle, they're going to be very important for that game against the Lions. And even the game against the Packers. Those 2 games, it's going to come down to our interior offensive line. So the big concern that a lot of us have going into this season with the interior offensive line, it's improved a lot. So I feel a lot better than going in with Lucas Patrick and Cody Whitehair. I feel significantly better, but that's going to be where the rubber hits the road in these 2 matches. That's going to be the big test because are they going to do enough to protect Caleb Williams? And nice thing is it's going to be more than halfway through the season. Caleb's going to be well adjusted to the NFL. He'll have his NFL legs under him. He appears in college to be able to adjust well, to avoid that pressure, to be able to roll out and either throw it away or get it down the field where he needs to go. This is where the rubber meets the road, is when we hit that gauntlet, when we hit those 2 sections where the Bears play 3 games within 10, 11-day periods twice, and most of those, 5 out of 6 of those games, against the division opponents. So this right here is one of the more important overviews that I can go over more for the other teams. And combined with what we did 2 days ago with the offensive tackles and yesterday with the interior offensive linemen, it really is going to come down to the trenches this year for the NFC North. That's what it's going to come down to. And that's a little bit worrisome for the Bears and the lack of additions they did on the interior of the defensive line. I actually feel really good about Montez Sweat, DeMarcus Walker, Austin Booker, and Jacob Martin. I really feel good about that. The interior, I feel good about our starters, but if Andrew Billings or Gervon Dexter go down, I'm really worried. Like, I don't feel good. I would feel really good if we had gotten Christian Wilkins or if we had gotten DJ Reader. I would feel a lot better. But this is where we are. I'm actually really optimistic, but I would like to see something in camp come through with Jamari Chroma or Keith Randolph showing that they can be that last piece of the defensive line. But as it stands right now, very competitive really between the Lions and the Packers and that. The Bears are slightly behind, but really solid ahead of the Vikings, and the Vikings more solid on their interior or their outside linebackers and their defensive ends and their interior defensive line. But that's where we stand. Let me know what you guys think. Thanks for tuning in. Again, please hit the like button if you haven't done so. Please subscribe if you haven't done so. We're almost there. Couple days away, guys. This is where the rubber hits the road. This is where we're finally here. So let's keep bearing down. And until next time, Da Bears.